Hey Wealth Builders! Welcome back to another episode of The Bemused. My name is Mishak.
And I'm Akiva.
And on this channel, we talk about all things personal finance for young adults just like you and us.
So if you're into that kind of stuff, come on and join the Wealth Builders squad by hitting that big red subscribe button. And while you're at it, click that notification bell so you never miss when we post new, valuable, fun videos just like this one. And today, we are taking another look at our budget. So, inflation has been all the buzz in these past few months, that is 2022. We've been hearing about record inflation reaching 40-year highs. I think it was like around 8.5% at its high, I think in March or April 2022. And, you know, we're seeing it, we're feeling it in different areas of our lives. So we thought it would be a good idea, a cool idea to take a look at our budget as it stands today, see how it differs from even when we got married just 18 months ago, and or even last year, even 2021, and see what are the areas that have been affected the most, either by inflation or by lifestyle, just seeing what our budget looks like now compared to back then. Our housing costs cover a few different areas. We have, of course, our mortgage, we have our property taxes, our insurance, our HOA fees, what else? And our internet, we throw in there too. So like our all-in housing costs, in 2021, we had that in the budget at $1,637.90, like all of that combined. Since then, we've had a little bit of a shift. So our HOA fees went up by $10 a month so far. And then our property taxes also went up a little bit. And so we escrow our property taxes. And so that amount went up last year as well. So I think all in all, we experienced about a $40 increase in our monthly housing costs from one year to the next. The interesting part about this, though, is that really in our budget now, we are basically paying the same. And why I say it comes out to be the same is because my job instituted some lovely new benefits for the 2022 year, in which they are now covering our internet bills up to a certain amount, and it basically covers our whole bill. So that $40 basically that we would have had to pay extra, thankfully, is basically being covered by the reimbursement that I'm getting from my job for the internet. So we're basically flat year over year, but if not, it would have been like a $40 per month increase in housing costs. So that's to show you already a little bit of the impact on our budget.
So moving on to the next item, car insurance and car maintenance. So surprisingly, this line item hasn't really changed at all. Back in 2021, we were at about $180 a month, which is about 5% of our budget, and we are holding steady at that rate. We have not really increased or decreased at all in 2022's budget. However, we actually have had to spend from that budget for the first time in 2022. So that's a little interesting. That might change in a year or so from now, but for right now, keeping it consistent.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is a sinking fund. This isn't like actual expenses. This is the amount of money we put aside every month in the event that we need to pay for something and to cover car insurance. And also, I think the older we get and the better our driving records have become, like the lower and lower our insurance bill becomes. So that also helps with a little bit of cushion in terms of our budget, which is nice.
Next, down to student loans. So back in 2021, we had in our budget $395.84.
Weird, I know.
And that was 11%, and we also are holding steady at that rate. Now I know those of you who have been following us and watched a few of our previous videos, you're like, only like $400? Yes, that's actually what we had in our budget. However, we were putting away a lot more towards student loan debt, but that number represents our like, hey, if we have to like strip down to bare bones, what would our payments be? And the reason why it's also so low, just to add that as well, is I am on public service loan forgiveness, for now. And my payments are like nothing. They're like $12 a month. Throughout COVID, I have not had to recertify. So from 2019, that's what my payment has been. So the majority of that is really Akiva's loans. Next, going down to groceries and food. So back in 2021, we were budgeting $200 a month, which was about 6%. In 2022, we've actually gone up to $220, about about same thing, 6%. So increase there of about $20. And I really think that decision, like although $20 isn't a lot, we have noticed that in this, season of inflation and, things on the rise, that we have noticed some things that we paid a little bit less for last year that now they're, a few cents more. And you might be like, Meshach, that's, if they're charging you 10 cents more for a bag of chips, so what does it matter? All of that stuff adds up. It adds up if you're paying a penny more for this, 2 cents more for that. If these are your staple items that you buy every month, you will see a difference in your bill. So just something that we decided to kind of get ahead of and throw a little bit more cash towards just to make sure that we're okay.
This is definitely one area that inflation has reared its head very evidently. The next area is gas, which is another area where we've been seeing a lot of increase in terms of our spending, and we have seen that as well. So our budget, first of all, we were really, really conservative with our budget when we first put it together, because when we first put this together, COVID was still relatively new. Like, we didn't know when we'd be going back to work, and so we basically just took both of our separate gas budgets that we were maintaining before we got married and just added it together, more or less. So we had like $120 a month, which obviously we were not spending that for most of the pandemic working from home. We've now both started to go out to work a little bit more often, once or twice a week. So we're spending more money, and even just going twice a week for him, once a week for me, we're spending so much more money, even like compared to like what we would have been paying if we were going every day. I don't even want to think about that. So in actuality, our gas bill has been like trending up toward the $90 a month mark. We decided to lower it to $80 this year because of, the trend before gas prices started going crazy. So in actuality, we've been spending really like $80 to $90. But what has really been saving us is, again, so my job instituted a new benefit this year too for commuter benefits. And so basically every time I drive into the office, I get mileage reimbursement. And because I go once a week, they reimburse us up to $50 a month, which I usually will meet that cap if I'm going once a week. So usually I'll get that $50, which then we just apply it to the gas line. And so that helps to pad everything. Gifts and giving, $50, we haven't made any changes, but I think we actually do. We've noticed that like we've had to buy a few gifts so far for the year, and we're just like, the prices of these things are starting to go up too. It's starting to get harder to stick to our gifting budget, I think, as we have in previous years. So we'll discuss that and see if we want to change that, but for now, that remains the same.
So now down to travel. So when we say travel, this is actually the amount that we allotted that we're going to spend if we were to travel to visit family on a monthly basis. And for us, most of our family is in New York, so a little bit further south. Thankfully for us, coming from the north, it's actually way cheaper. So $100 is probably enough for maybe 2 round trips.
No, not quite. As long as we go once a month and no more, we should be fine.
But we've kept that consistent in 2022 as well, so that amount has not changed. Then going down to our phone bills. So we have good old T-Mobile, and they have plans, we have a plan with them where everything is wrapped up into one, where we have taxes and everything. So that rate, I believe, is $125 or 100, why am I looking? It's right here. It's $125, and that's about 4% of our budget, and that has remained the same, except
I think it's actually 120 or something like that.
Yeah, it's actually 120 is what our bill is with everything included, but the extra $5 was for a Netflix package that we added on.
Now for our allowances. So the way we work is that we pool our money together for everything, and then we each have our monthly allowance that we can take out and do whatever we want with it. So this year we decided to increase our allowances. So last year my allowance was $215 a month. This year we increased that $50. So now my allowance is $265. And that $265 goes real fast, okay?
And then for me, my allowance was $175 in 2021, which was about 5% of our budget. And then I also got a little bit of an increase to $215, so about 6%.
Miscellaneous/dates. This is kind of like our whatever is left over, like our fund money that we get to play with, do what we want. We end up going out to eat sometimes with this money. Like, that's where that comes from. Like, if we want to go out or do anything special, have a date night, whatever, like, that is where that money comes from. Last year we were spending about $170 ish a month. Now we have made that a flat $210 for this year, so we have upped that as well. So again, I mean, you can argue this maybe a little bit of lifestyle creep, but it's also just like outside's expensive, y'all. Some new entrants to the budget that weren't even in here before. One was health insurance. Not that we weren't paying for it before, but how we're paying for it is different. So we don't necessarily include it in our budget anymore because now it comes out of his paycheck before it even hits the budget, if that makes sense. So that's absorbed in his paycheck. Another new item is savings. So a different sinking fund that we've established this year that we didn't have last year, specifically for healthcare. Essentially, we're trying to save up enough money that's the equivalent of the deductible on his health insurance plan. And so now we put money aside every single month. We get $77 we put aside every single month so that in a year we have the deductible. So in case he needs medical services, anything happens, we can do that and pay the deductible and be fine. So it's a new sinking fund we have. Life insurance is the same. We have term life insurance policies that we took out shortly after we got married, and that ain't gonna change, right? It's gonna be the same for the life of the term. So no difference there.
So we've made it to the end. Comment down below if you have any type of suggestions on our recent changes to our budget, or tell us how you feel about these changes that we've made. Has inflation affected your budget in any way? We want to know that down below.
And if you're interested to hear some of the strategies that we've used over the past couple of years to really grow our wealth by 6 figures without 6-figure salaries, and now you have more of an insight into actually what we spend our money on every month, you are interested to learn all of those secrets, all the tips, all the strategies, definitely I'd love to invite you to join our webinar on the financial freedom formula. We're sharing all of the things. All right, so the link will be down in the description box below. Make sure you sign up. It's gonna be great.
So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss when we post new content just like this. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Goodbye, people.